Hi, I'm Phyllis, southernfrugal.com. This afternoon I'm going to make a little simple summer top to wear. Now I made my pattern from a top, and y'all probably seen me wear this on videos, and this top is made out of 100% rayon. It's washable rayon, and I have worn it, we were trying to figure it out the other day, at least 15 years during the summer, because it's really, really cool. Much cooler than cotton even. But anyway, I could not find any rayon fabric anywhere except one remnant that I found at Joann Fabrics, and they didn't have any other that was rayon. So all the fabric now is coming from China. And I think that the rayon fabric is going to manufacturers, because you can find rayon tops even in Walmart, but you can't find the fabric, or I can't. So I went to both Hobby Lobby and to Joann Fabrics, and other than the one remnant, and I have already made a top out of that one, that one remnant was the only thing I found in both stores. So, and I even looked online and tried to find some and have had no luck so far. But anyway, so what I did is, this top is real simple, and it doesn't even have any darts in it, and it's got a semi-dolman sleeve on it, so there are no inset sleeves. So it's really simple. It doesn't have a zipper in the back. It's just got a little button and a little opening there, so I'm going to make mine just like that. And the other one I also made using the same pattern. So I've got the pattern cut out by laying down, let me just show you, way down here. Are y'all too close? What I did was fold the fabric, or the top that I was going to copy, right along the seams, and then put it down on the fold of the fabric, and then laid it out and decided that I wanted the top a little, well, y'all can't see that, can you? Hold on. Okay, now you can see it a little better. So I folded this top along the seam line on each side and on the top, and remember the front of it's going to go on the fold, so we're cutting both sides, of course, exactly alike. So anyway, that's the way I made the pattern. And the back, the only difference is the back of the neckline is a little bit higher. See, a little bit higher, and there's a seam down the back of it. So what I did was I decided I would want the front and the back bottom the same length, rather than have it, because the bottom of it was also a couple inches longer. So all I did was just lay out the back of the pattern again, right there. And the only difference was that I am going to cut the side that's on the fold. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And the other thing I did was make a bigger seam allowance on the back of it, because that's where the little section I'm going to leave open so you can get it over your head. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and we'll be back. Alright, we've got the front and the back cut out now. So I'm going to open up the front, because remember we cut that on the fold. So there's the front piece. And the first thing I'm going to do is sew the top shoulder section together. And after we sew that together, we're going to press that seam, and also then we're going to cut the facing that will go inside the neck. That way I don't have a double seam up on the neck for the inner facing. And usually in patterns, that's what you would have, another seam. So I'm just going to put the right sides together on this. Put this other one on. Like so. couple of pins in it. Now I like to use the quilting pins just because they're easier to find if you drop one of them. We're going to do a 5/8 inch seam on these, and then I'm going to do a French seam. Get these edges together. Can y'all still see that? So to do a French seam, you go ahead and sew your regular 5/8 inch seam, then you trim one side of it down a little bit, fold the other side under, and then stitch along the edge, and that makes a French seam. And that way it's never going to unravel on you, and especially if you're using a material that tends to ravel. Or you could just zigzag the seams and make them so they don't unravel any. Alright, we've now got this pinned. And again, those are quilting pins. Yeah, I used to do quilting. I don't do that anymore, but I used to. Back in the 1980s when that country look was in, I probably made 4 or 5 quilts during that time. That's kind of what I did to relax, because I was still working then. So it would take me a couple of weeks just to make a quilt, or longer. And then I sold those quilts at a garage sale, because I just didn't want them anymore. Alright, so there's the top seams are all pinned together, so we're going to sew along this edge here and this edge right here. So y'all come on in the dining room with me where I'm going to sew it. Alright, hold on. Okay, so we're in the dining room now. Mr. Bucky's in there watching some kind of baseball game. The dogs are in there playing. Everybody's making a bunch of rackets, so I decided I would just do the sewing in the dining room. Alright, so I'm using a Brother sewing machine, and I bought this machine at Walmart, I'm going to guess and say about 5 years ago now, for $69. I don't think you can get them for $69 now, but I have put a link on my website under products I highly recommend, and there's one similar that they sell at Amazon for $129. Now, on other websites like Overstock.com, they sell refurbished machines, but if I were buying a machine, I would buy it from somewhere where I could return it if I did not like it, or if there was something wrong with it. So, and not that you couldn't do that at Overstock, but just better to buy from Amazon or like Walmart if they still carry them in Walmart. Alright, so I've already threaded it. I did not buy any extra thread for this fabric. I paid $3 a yard for it, and I wasn't going to spend $1.79 on a spool of thread too. So I had some gray thread, light gray thread, and I had some light yellow thread. So I used the yellow thread for my bobbin. Alright, so we're going to allow a 5/8 inch seam allowance here, and on my machine there's little lines that are marked there, and if you just put your, let me move you closer, you just put your edge of your fabric at the little place that shows 5/8 of an inch, then you'll have the right seam allowance. Now on the back of this blouse I did let's see if I can move y'all closer. There, that's much better right there. And this is what you're seeing is the light on the machine. Anyway, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you can just kind of run along the line there and know that you're right on that. Alright, so 5/8 of an inch is just a little over a 1/2 inch. Now this machine also has a reverse right up here, so what I do, and the reason you reverse of course is to lock the seam in at the edge of the fabric. So here is my little reverse button, and to reverse it all you do is pull it down like that and it'll go back. So So y'all know I'm pushing that little button down when we get there. All right, so we're going to sew a little bit, usually about 3 stitches. Well, that's 3. Then we pull that little button down. It goes backwards, and you let it go, and it comes forward again. So we're just going to go ahead and sew this. And by the way, I couldn't say enough good things about this little machine that I've got. It's the most inexpensive machine I've ever owned, and it's by far the best. So how do you figure that, right? And of course, with the ball tip needle, you can sew right over straight pins. So I'm going to back up now. 1, 2, 3. Then forward 3, and that sort of seals that edge there. So I'm assuming some of y'all have never sewn anything, but a lot of you probably have. But I'll tell you about my scissors. I purchased these at that hair place. You know that, I don't remember the name of it. So I just can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's where you get scissors to cut hair. That's where I got these scissors. And I actually got 2 pair. One I used when I'm trimming the dogs, and this one I used just for material, so it stays in my little notions bag, so I don't ever use it to cut paper or anything other than just material. All right, so we've got this seam sewn, and I'm going to bring y'all back as soon as I got the other one sewn together, and then we'll go over the ironing board and show you what to do next. All right, we'll be right back. All right, so we're over at the ironing board now, and what I'm going to do is press these seam open with the steam iron. And what that's going to do is lock the stitches in once you press them open. And that steam hits it. It kind of locks the thread in. So we just iron them all open. Can you all see that? It's not showing up very good on my little monitor there. But anyway, so that's the seams pressed open. Now, because we're going to do a French seam, what I'm going to do is cut off one side of that down about halfway, and then I'll take this side, press the little edge down, and then turn it over. Y'all couldn't really see that, I know. All right, let me get it cut. Well, I'll cut it while y'all are watching. All right, so I'm going to cut that seam. Can y'all move y'all closer? It's hard to do this. There, you can see that seam really, really well now. All right, so what we're going to do is cut this seam. Let me move my material down. So y'all can see what I'm doing. Get to the end of it. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting one side of the seam down about halfway. So I'm just going to clip that off about halfway down. And there, so I clipped about that much off of it. Now I'm going to do the seam on the other shoulder exactly the same way. Now, you know, you don't have to do French seams. You can clearly just use a finishing zigzag stitch on the raw edges, and that'll keep them from unraveling. All right, so now that's the other side. Okay, let me turn this around. We'll be right back. Okay, I've got the material turned a little better now. All right, so now for the side that we left long, in other words, this is the side we trimmed off half of it. For this side, we're just going to barely turn that little edge under and then press it down. Just barely turn it under and press it down. So this would be the edge that you cut off on the back of the top. Just barely turn it down. There. Can y'all see that? I've got it pressed barely down a little bit. All right, so now we're going to bring that material over top of that raw edge. And I like to do it like that. So that raw edge is down. And fold it over. And then what we're going to do, once I get both sides like that, we're going to sew it down from the outside. Make sure I got that edge in. All right, can y'all see that? Anyway, when we get over to the machine, you'll be able to see it just a little bit better. All right, we'll be right back when I get both these top seams turned under. All right, so let's look at the seam again. So I don't think you could see it too good over there on the ironing board, but here's the 5/8 inch seam, and we cut one side of it down about halfway. Then we pressed everything open first, then we cut that down on one side. Then we took the other side and pressed a little edge in, and so now what we're going to do is turn this over. Actually works good to just do it like that. Turn it over and then press it down like that. And then we're going to sew along this edge, but we're going to do it on the front side of the material. And the reason we do it on the front side is so we make sure that it's even, because if you try to do it on the other side, you might not get it even. So the way I do this is to just put it in there. Let me fix it so y'all can see. I don't know how much you can see of that. Anyway, I make my judgment on where the needle is going by just feeling of it. And so I can feel that the edge is right there. So then I can put my presser foot down, and I know that I've got just a teeny bit of an edge over on this side. So I'll just watch that rather than watching where the needle is. And I also keep my fingers on this to make sure that flap is turned down on the other side. So I'm going to have to put you all down while I do that, and then we'll be back. Okay, so here's what the French seam looks like. See, it's sewn on the front side, and then on the back side it's sewn so that way you don't have to worry about anything unraveling. Yeah. So there it is. You can hardly see it, huh? There it is right there. Right. I can't find it. Right in there. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and over to the ironing board and press this where we've sewn it, just to lock the seams in, and then we're going to go in there and cut the interfacing for the neck. All right, we'll be back. Okay, so now we're ready to cut out the interfacing for the neck of this garment. So this is the garment. I've already sewn the two side seams together, and the reason I wanted to do it this way is so that I will not have an additional seam on each of the sides here. So we're just going to first cut out around the circle. Like that. And I'm going to have to move to the other side of the table, but I'm going to cut all of this out, and we'll be right back. Alright, so now we've got the inside neck part of the interfacing cut out. So what we're going to do is remove the top now. And the next thing we want to do is cut the bottom of it. And what I've done, I just have a little piece of cardboard I'm using, and I'm just going to kind of mark this around the edge with a pin. Now I'll cut the part off that's where I've marked with the pin, so it's not going to matter, because remember, we really don't have a pattern here. We're just using a top that I bought several years ago, and that top did not have an interfacing around the neck, but I wanted to put one, so we just are having to make one. So I'll just mark every little section over, or every little bit, and then I'll cut it out in circle form with my scissors, and then we'll have our interfacing. And just using the little cardboard as a sort of as a guide. Alright, so now I can see my marks. Mark this side too. And so now what I'm going to do is just follow my marks around and really actually cut the section off where I've marked with the pen. Alright, let me finish cutting this out and I'll show you how we put it together. Okay, so I finished cutting out the little facing that I'm going to put around the neck, and off camera I went ahead and used a zigzag around the edge so it would not start unraveling. I've also marked the exact middle of this, and I know that the middle of the neck is right here where that little area is where it was pressed, so I know right where to put it. So I'm going to put that down, and I put right sides together, and what I'm going to do now is go ahead and pin it all the way around, and then we're going to be ready to sew. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, we have pinned the right sides together around the neck of this little top, and now we're going to be sewing it. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew it with 3/4 of an inch of a seam here, just because I want my neck opening to be a little bit bigger, and then we'll be trimming it, so we'll be back. Okay, so we've completed sewing all the interfacing around on the neck, and so now what we're going to do is trim this seam down to probably about 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to go over the ironing board and press it, and then we're going to sew again, so we'll be back. Okay, so now I've trimmed the inside seam down to about 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you don't trim it, it's hard to get it pressed down and have it look nice and smooth around the neck. So the next thing I'm going to do is I've got my steam iron, and I'm going to press that inward, just like that. All the way around. And again, that's setting the little stitches in the material when you steam it like that. Alright, so now we've got it all pressed in. So now we're going to go back to the machine, and we're going to make a little seam right there along that line, and that's going to hold that down. Then we'll come back and press it open. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do that and leave y'all sitting here while I do. I'm going to sew right along that little seam, which is going to sew down this seam right here. Then we'll be able to turn it over and press it in. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, so now I've sewn a little seam right along that line, and what that does is it catches the back of this, and it also makes it lay down a lot nicer. So now we're ready to press it down, and it should go down pretty well. Alright, so we'll turn this around. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to jiggle you. Alright, so it should lay right down now, and all we have to do is press it. Can y'all see that? Yeah. Okay. So we're just going to again use the steam iron, and that should go down very easily since I trimmed that seam. And you know, when we were cutting out the facing, and the reason I didn't want another seam here, because on, can y'all see that? Let's see. right here is that top seam, and if I had another seam there where I'd pieced this interfacing together, it would have made it pretty bulky. So anyway, and also when I was in home ec, we learned, well, of course we didn't have zigzag attachments way back then, and so what they taught us to do was turn it under and sew it, but that makes that extra little bulk on the outside, and I prefer to zigzag it that way. All right, let's see if we can get the rest of this on the back side. Just hold your, I can't ever tell if y'all, if it's in the scene is, the material is in the camera or not. Yeah, that was right. All right, so this is of course the back of it, where we're going to have the little, hopefully I can find a button that'll sort of match. And just steam it down. And what we'll end up doing is actually by hand tacking the interfacing down on the seam on each side, and of course the back will have the seam sewn up, and then we'll, you know, it'll, I don't know how to explain that. Anyway, we're going to have an extra wide seam here where we're going to make that connection like that. So anyway, all right, we'll be back, and I'm going to go ahead and tack up the side seams and the back seam. Well, first I should show you what it looks like with the neck. All right, so there's the edge of the neck, the way that's going to look. Let me move y'all over a little bit. It's very difficult to film this, I can tell you. Okay, so there's the way the neck's going to look. It's just a regular round neck, and the interfacing is on it. So now we've got a nice edge at the neckline. All right, so now what I'm going to do is pin together the side seams and the back seam, and we'll be back. All right, I went ahead and sewed the back seam, and I don't know if y'all can see that or not. There it is right there. And I made it much wider than the other seams will be because I made allowances for that, and the reason I did that is because we're going to have this little opening in the back. So I stopped the seam right there, and this is the back, and I've also now got to make allowances for the interface, and I've sewn on. So what we're going to do is turn it back right at the seam, and we're going to sew that down, and then we're going to be able to turn it around and turn it back and make the little opening. All right, I'm going to sew that and we'll be back. Okay, we sewed down right at the back edge where we're going to have the opening. So all I did was just sew a seam 3/4 of an inch right down that edge, and so now all we have to do is turn it over. And to get to the point, what I usually do is kind of stick my scissors in there gently and get that point out. Takes a little finesse, and we're going to be pressing that down. So that makes, we'll also be sewing that seam down there, and that will make our nice smooth opening. All right, I'm going to do that and get the other side situated and press it down, and we'll be back. All right, we're getting close to finish now. So I went ahead and pressed the seam back in the middle. I haven't cut those threads off yet, but I pressed the seam back and went ahead and sewed down each side of the seam. Got to cut those threads off, but y'all can see the seam right there on either side. Yeah, and then, hey Steely. Steely came in here to see what Mama was doing, didn't you? You've been asleep. Yep. Okay, so here's the top back, and what I'm going to do is either put a little button on there with a little loop as a buttonhole, or I'll put a little hook on there. And there's the back seam. Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right, so now we're going to do the sides, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and make French seams on both sides too, and y'all have already seen me do that on the shoulders, so we'll be back when I get both side seams sewn and the French seam sewn in. Okay, so there's the top, the front of it. So I've decided to go ahead and hem these sleeves before I sew up the side seam. So all I'm going to do is just press the seam, a little edge. Well, let me open it up here. All right, so here's the sleeve edge right here, and it's going to be much easier to just go ahead and do the hem on that right now on both sides, and then I'll do the side seam. So we're just going to go ahead and press that and sew it, and we'll show that to you later. Okay, here's the edge on the sleeve. On one side I went ahead and sewed it. I have not pressed it yet. And here's the sleeve that has not been sewn. So what I did was turned it under 1/4 of an inch and then another 1/4 of an inch over and pressed it. Then I turn it on the right side to sew it. All right, we'll be back. Okay, on the side seams I decided to go ahead and just sew the seam and then do the zigzag to finish the edge on the side. I just didn't think that, going down the side, the French seam would look very good. So I just went ahead and made a regular seam and then trimmed it and then refinished the edge. So now all we've got to do is hem the bottom, and hopefully I can find some kind of little hook for the top. So what I'm going to do is turn this under 1/4 of an inch and then turn it over again 1/4 of an inch and then just hem it on the machine. So I'm going to do the first press up of 1/4 of an inch and we'll be back. Okay, I've got the bottom hem pressed up now. And I had to make the hem a little more narrow at each side seam because we've got a curve here on both sides, the front and the back, where it kind of curves down. So I'm going to sew that now and we'll be through in just a minute. Alright y'all, I have finished the blouse except for the little hooks for the back of it. I really can't find any little hooks. So anyway, I went ahead and hemmed around the bottom. I had to make the seam a little smaller right there in the corner because of the curve. So there's the blouse I copied. There's some leftover material. And you see how the back is an inch or so longer than the front? Well, I changed that and made the back and the front the same. I also made the neckline a little bigger. Just a little bit bigger. But basically the sleeves are the same. Now I call these half dolman sleeves. You know, a dolman sleeve, it's all made in together and they're usually, 3/4 sleeves. Anyway, I just call these a half dolman because it's all made in together. A very simple blouse to make. Now I will definitely be wearing this probably in a video next week. And anyway, this is my favorite summertime little blouse. I wear it all the time. It's been washed many, many times over the years, and it's made out of rayon, and so therefore it really doesn't fade. Unlike this one, which is cotton, and of course will fade eventually. But anyway, I like it. I have already tried it on. It fits perfect, but I do have to get a little hook or a little button. I couldn't even find a button that would look right to go right there. So if I do a button, it'll be a little small button and a little hook, a little thing to hook around the button. But probably it's going to be a hook. I might even have to buy some hooks. I don't know. But anyway, y'all, there it is, and we will see y'all next time. I had several requests to do a tutorial on making the little blouse, and I don't think I'm as good at this because of the difficulty with the camera when you're trying to sew and show somebody something. It's not like cooking videos where everything's right there, and to use the having to use the iron and all that. So anyway, all right, that's it, y'all. I hope some of y'all will try making your own little pattern by one of your favorite blouses and see how it goes. This one is just very simple. It was just 3 pieces plus the interfacing for the neck, which I've also got to tack that down at each corner. And again, I decided to not do the French seam on each side. I just thought it would be better if I did the zigzag and trim that seam and then did a little zigzag. See? Yeah. All right, y'all. We will see y'all next time. Bye for now.